Welcome back, everyone, to week 9. Um, I hope you had a restful period. I guess maybe all of you are actually working full time, so you may not even have noticed that we were on break. So, a few things. First is talking about or looking at what's ahead of us, content wise. So, we have put the first half of the semester behind us, and where whereas the entire course is ultimately focused on the fundamentals of the Android framework specifically, again, but mobile applications generally. Um, Arguably, the second half of the semester will involve or will have more involved topics. I don't like to use the word complex. I don't like to use the word hard, but certainly there's a lot more heft to some of the stuff that we're going to look at. For example, we're going to have a multi-lecture series covering a component called fragments, and that that broad topic and the series of topics below it will impact quite a bit of how we look at Android applications, how we design our components, how we design our user interface, and how we facilitate communication amongst these components. It is a topic that I would recommend strongly that you uh, get as much hands-on as you can, as early as you can, and as was always the case, and is still obviously the case now, meet with me to discuss any considerations, any concerns, any misunderstandings or gaps that you might come across. You really want to wrap your brain around this. Again, we're going to have about I think 2 full modules just covering, or 2 weeks covering fragments. So we have that to look forward to. We don't have any quizzes or any for the next couple of weeks. I believe the next quiz would be not this module, not the next module, but the module following. I'll confirm that. And of course, as always, though, we still have our weekly assignments. So that is pretty much some of the content related topics or things I need to cover. I do, however, want to take a quick look at something new that is happening. And let's just do a quick switch over. And that is using Android Studio. In fact, let's just go full screen. And what I'd like to bring to your attention is a small change that was recently made to the project structure and the way applications are created in Android. And this is with the most recent release of Android Studio. This literally happened while you were sleeping. And that is this. If you now create an Android application from scratch in Android Studio and you select empty views activity, hit next, hit whatever, and you create your project, unlike prior examples or prior templates where the activity that was created for us basically just had one function on create with a call to the superclasses on create function and a call to set content view. If you're running Android Studio Iguana, which is the newest version, whether you did the update manually or like me, your system automatically updates, you might get a newer version of the software. And now when you create an application and you select an empty views activity, you now get this additional code, which looks like, quite a bit. It's not that impactful, quite frankly, in terms of what we have to build, but I just want to bring it to your attention so you can appreciate what it is, why it's here, and whether or not you need it. I'll answer the last question first, and the answer is no, you don't need it. And in fact, if you like, you could just remove this block of code as well as the enable edge-to-edge function call and go back to where we started, and this will function just fine. But let me speak to what's actually happening here. So this is a change that was made to the template that gets generated for you when you create a new project or you just add a new activity, even if we were to do that from inside our app. And what's happening basically is that by default, activities are now setting themselves up to be displayed edge to edge. So for us, edge to edge, let's try this again, means that an application that is running will extend for the entire vertical length of the screen as well as the horizontal length. So the activity is taking up or is filling the screen all the way to the edges. Now, this can impact your application or your activity in two ways, or the user experience. The first is that an activity that is taking up the entire screen may overlap with certain system components, certain system views. Specifically, you may have a navigation bar, the 3-button navigation on some devices, as well as top-level components. And those items may either obscure the system components may obscure your activity in the worst case, and in the best case, and in the worst case, it may actually prevent the user from interacting with certain components in your activity. So you can imagine that I might have had a button here, for instance, but the button is partially obscured by the navigation bar that the system provides. So enabling edge-to-edge might result in that. This second block of code is basically changing what's called the insets. Well, it's not changing, it's manipulating the insets to basically tell any views or components that might be obscured by the system UI to basically adjust their own dimensions so that they fit within the available space, ignoring the system provided components. That, again, that is if they're visible. So in this scenario, it's not visible. So the activity is taking up the entire space. And that's what they're referring to here, by the way. So they're saying this component, which is the r.id.main, is the ID given to the activity's layout. They're basically saying make sure that that layout does not encroach on the space that the system might need for its own top-level components, which again are not visible here. And the reason it's not visible here is because this Android version is using what we call gesture controls, where you, for example, if I wanted to go back, instead of hitting the back button here, I could swipe on the screen. And there you see it. So gestures can also be impacted by edge to edge. And in that scenario, there are other ways you can basically make sure that your application does not interfere with the gesture control of the system. So again, you can use it either for the system components, or it can be for system gestures, where there are a certain amount of pixels on the left, a certain amount of pixels on the right, and a certain amount of pixels at the bottom of the screen that are reserved for the user to swipe or perform any type of gestures on the system. And that is what gets protected with this code. So broadly speaking, this does not impact any of your application logic or whatever it is you're trying to build. This has everything to do with user experience as well, and ensuring that your application plays nice with the system UI or system controls. So again, if you were to remove it, no harm, no foul. Just know that if you were to enable edge to edge, then you do absolutely want to have the second piece that says it's edge to edge. However, make sure that a specific component or the entire container is not in the way of the system components or the gesture area. That's basically it. All right, so with that being said, we just want to make sure that we are on track for everything else that we need to do. As always, start your assignments early. Make sure that you are able to reach out and ask questions with enough time to address, or for me to address any concerns you might have, and to tackle the problems with any input I can give. And yeah, I think that's it. So let's hit the ground running for the second half of the semester. Good luck.